Hey everybody, this is Robert with RC Archery. Thank you for tuning in to a new installment of the Tuesday Tip of the Week series. I know it's been a long time since I've done a video, but these were really popular when I was doing them with the origination of this channel, and I'm bringing them back, and I'm starting them out with a bow build. In my hand, I have a PSE PerformX3D. This is going to be a custom build that I had run through their custom shop, and it's going to be my outdoor bow for this year. I've been shooting one of these for my indoor and now my 3D setup. This is going to be for FITA and field and anything that I want some distance on. I'm going to walk you through setting this up piece by piece in a multi-segment series that's going to run for the next several weeks. So you have some new archery to look forward to each Tuesday, and you can see how I set up a bow, how I tune a bow, and how I set my arrows up for the bow as well. All right guys, so here is the bow that I'm looking at, and this is what I'm going to be building. As you can see, I've gone back to a blue riser. This is standard for what I was using for my bows for a long time. I had a red riser that I used first for this because their blue actually wasn't a standard color that PSE ran this year, so the red was easier for me to get quickly, and then I ordered a blue through their custom shop. This bow is pretty standard other than the color. It still has 60-pound limbs. The draw length range, the peak weight, the let off, and everything is stock and everything is standard the way that it comes from PSE. Now I am going to do a couple different tweaks to it before I actually start setting the bow up, and one of those is actually going to be to change out the modules on here. So from the factory, the let off modules that PSE are putting on these bows are from 65 to 75% let off. The 75% let off is something that I ran on the Expression 3D that I had. I really liked it, but for some reason it seems like these mini Evolve cams are maybe just a touch more aggressive right at the end of the back wall, at least for my draw length. So I actually like a little bit higher let off in order for me to feel as comfortable as I want to be at full draw. It doesn't feel like the bow is trying to be pulled away from me. It doesn't feel like I'm having to fight it at full draw. I can really settle in and focus on my aim and my shot execution. So the first thing that I'm actually going to do is swap the mods out. Now these are a separate piece you do have to buy from PSE. They're a little bit pricey. They're around $100 depending on what you find from your dealer. But for me, I really like them, and it's what I'm going to use. Now, something to pay attention to on these bows is they do use torx screws for a lot of their draw length changes, the mod setup, and the let off setup as well. So that's something that you're going to have to find. I believe they're all T15, T10s from what I believe that I've found on here for those. They do have some other torques around this bow that are bigger than that, 25s, and I believe maybe 30 as well. Such as if you're going to start adjusting their lateral adjustment system for their limb pockets, wedge lock system here in the front, things of that nature. But for right now, this is the first thing I'm going to set up. So the modules themselves are very similar to what you find on some of the other offerings from PSE, and it's also really easy to change out. One thing you'll notice is what I'm going to do with this part in particular, this is going to be your draw stop. I'm actually going to take these out of each one and just hold them to the side. You will reuse that part throughout the build of this. All you'll have in the kit when you buy these are just the modules themselves, and you don't use that same draw stop module, and I'll show you how to adjust it for different let off percentages as we're going. Turning the cam around here, I'm going to switch to a T15 torx screw, and then I'm going to actually take these out completely. You may have to slightly move your cable a little bit here just to get these to come out. And then once that releases, that mod's going to allow itself to come out pretty simply from there. Hopefully this will focus on camera and let you see it. They've got a set of serial numbers on each one of these modules. One of them is going to have, at the last 3 digits, it's going to say a B or a T. That's going to stand for bottom and top. So if you get confused, you match those up with the modules that you're taking off in order to make sure that you're getting the correct ones put back on the right cam. Now once we get the new mod installed, this is what I was talking about before with the setting the let off percentage rather on what we're doing with the cable stop here. So on the new system, they're set up for 80 to 90%. So each one of these little correspondents here, these little holes are going to notch out for 80, 85, and 90, and that's going to be the same when you look at your 65 to 75% on your stock. There would be 65, 70, and 75, and there's some little notches that you can see within this. So for me, I actually found that the feel that I want at full draw and what I'm looking for as far as holding weight and everything that I'm wanting is 85%. That's what looks out to be the best for me, and it also is giving me the draw length that I want without having to manipulate the strings and cables too very much. So it's actually helping me out a lot right here. So I'm going to put that in that middle slot, and then I'm going to reinstall it. When you go to put this back on, it just goes onto the end here with the rubber point facing where the cable would roll around to. Each one of these screws, whenever you're putting these on, they're going to have a little bit of Loctite on them from the factory. So it's going to help you hold them in place once you get, all put on here. I would still suggest looking at them whenever you're shooting after you get a few shots in them, retightening them, and just checking them over just like normal. All right, so now that I've got the modules in place, the next thing I'm going to do is switch out my stock strings to a set from Rogue Bowstrings. Rogue is a newer company onto the scene for string building materials, and they're a new company that you haven't seen me using in my videos in the past. If you follow me on Instagram or on my Facebook channels, you know that I've been promoting these and using these for a while now, and I actually also sell them in my online store, so at rcarchery.com. Now this is going to be a theme you probably noticed throughout this build. Anything that is going on my bow is something that I also sell in my store, and it's something that I feel confident in using. It's something I also feel confident in selling because I don't like returns and I don't like messing with the hassle of what goes in with that. This is a series set that I have as a custom RC archery style set. I carry all three of theirs. They're different levels that they use, and then my RC archery custom set as well. It's not too very different from the R19 Pro series. The only difference that you're going to find is the string and cable material itself. I like to use X over 452X. X material is a little bit softer on the shot. It doesn't vibe as much. The fuzzing isn't as bad, and I don't feel the same shock right at the initial shot, especially on the Target Line series. I don't notice it as much with the PSEs with the string stop, but I did a lot with my Hoyts without that string stop. But the in-serving materials and the center serving materials that they use on their R19 Pro series, the upgraded versions, that's what I have used on these. I just have an X material versus 452. There's gonna be red strings with the blue bow to go with the theme of red and blue, like I use on my indoor and my 3D bow with the red bow and blue strings. And I'm going to install these now and get these put on, and then we'll continue the build process. All right, so now that I have the strings on, the next thing I'm going to do is actually start setting up the specs of the bow itself. So I know based on previous works with this platform of bow, what I'm looking for as far as draw length, holding weight, peak weight, and just everything that I'm going to do on this bow as an initial setup. Now from there, I'm going to tweak it a little bit just depending on what I need for working with my arrow spine and getting the best grouping and just, going through that process. But initially what I'm looking for is tying a loop on here that's just a temporary loop so that I can use my draw board. I'm going to check peak weight, holding weight, and draw length. And then from there, I'm going to see if I need to do anything with the cams, if I need to rotate them more, or maybe if they're over-rotated, take some, twist out of the cables, what I'm going to do. That's the process that I'm going to start now. So once I have the initial loop tied on, basically what I'm doing then is putting it in my draw board. Draw board to me is one of my most valuable and useful tools that I'm going to have in all of the arsenal of what I'm doing here. And the reason is because I can tell more by the actual numbers on this bow, what it draws for peak weight, what it holds for holding weight, if the cams are adjusted in the correct position, if they're over-rotated, under-rotated, and then it also allows me to check my draw length with this. I mean, that's huge when it comes to shooting a target bow or any archery format that you're doing, is finding your correct draw length and then setting the bow up that way as well. So this is one of my most valuable tools that I use, and it tells me more than just measuring axle to axle and brace height. This tells me actually what's going on and allows me to make adjustments. This bow maxed out right above 60 pounds, and what I'm going to do here is just use the press itself to just get the cams to touch top and bottom, see where they're at. It's a little bit off. The top is actually hitting a little bit before the bottom, A little bit more than what I would like, but it is there. And then from this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my numbers. So I had just over 60 pounds peak weight. I've got 9.2 pounds holding weight. And then I can do a formula there, and I can find my peak weight, or I'm sorry, I can find my let-off percentage. If this is all going to be high level. It's just what I'm doing. It's very quick and what I'm taking care of here. If this is something that you're new to, if you've never done any kind of setup like this, if you want to see more about maybe how I tied the D loop or the formula for finding the let-off percentage, I do have some videos that I sell through my website. I have a full bow setup where I show you the formula, take you step through, what you're doing there to find everything, show you what cables to do, how to set the bow up, everything, all the way through tuning. It's very in-depth. So that is something that I offer if you would like to see that. If not, I am going to do a high-level overview of what I'm doing here. So initially what I found here whenever first checking over the bow is that I'm slightly under on total let-off. So that correlates with me actually finding out that I'm also just slightly under on draw length. So what that means here is that the cams are slightly under rotated, just a little bit. So I'm going to add some twist to the cables. What that's going to do is over rotate the cams just a little bit. It's also going to lengthen the draw length some too, because it's bringing the limb tips together. So it's going to give me a little bit more draw length. That's going to raise my peak weight and also increase my let-off percentage, lower my holding weight. So because the top cam was hitting just slightly before the bottom cam, what I'm going to do is actually differ what I'm doing on my twist. So with the bottom cam, I actually only put one twist in there. With this top cam, I'm going to put two. So that's going to help me with a little bit of the rotation that I need to try to get the cams to hit at the same time. And then I'm going to recheck my numbers after doing this and see where I'm at, and then continue working on it until the specs that I want it to be at are where they're at. So when it comes to setting up my bows to get them to the specs that I want, it's a give and take game. What I'm going to do is work with a combination of cam rotation. Sometimes I'm going to play with the string depending on what I'm looking for, and then also draw weight, peak weight, the way that I'm backing out the limbs. All of those work together to get me where I'm going long term. I like a draw weight range between 55 and 57 pounds. Generally in that area, I will find the draw length that I'm wanting, and it also gives me the feel it full draw that I want as well. That draw weight, the peak weight there, also allows me to be able to pull the bow back for multiple arrows without ever tiring or starting to shake or feel bad or anything like that on a target round. What I'm going to do with this is I actually mark the limb bolt and the limb pockets. I just use a pencil usually. You can also do a paint pen, marker, anything like that. What you're doing with that is it gives you a reference to go off of to make sure that you're getting perfect limb bolt turning on the top and the bottom. Use a tool like this. It seems to be a little bit easier for me. These are from Easton. Work really well. I've used Allen wrenches in the past, however you want to do it. But that helps me get to where I'm wanting. So what I did with this bow is I actually rotated the cams a little bit. I added some twists to the cables. I added 3 total to the bottom, 4 to the top. It got me the sync that I wanted to where they're hitting at the same time. I don't have any issues with that right now, and that's going to be a solid point on a binary system to be able to start tuning. So as far as knock travel and things of that nature. What I also did is back the limbs out. That brings the limb tips together, just like if you were shortening the cables, how it brings the limb tips together too. So what that does is it lengthens the draw length a little bit. I'm at 28 1/8 AMO. If you're not familiar with AMO draw length, what that is measuring to the deepest part of the grip here, back to the string, and then adding 1.75 inches to that, so 1 3/4 inches, and that gives you AMO draw length. I know that's where I like these bows to be set up with, so that allows me to have a starting point now to where I can set this bow up, start tuning it, start grouping with it, and start working with it and have a good setup. What I'm going to do with this video series now is actually start dedicating videos to certain parts of what I'm doing. So the next thing is going to be setting up an arrow rest. I'm going to actually be setting up a drop away arrow rest. I'm using a Hamskea Pro Micro Tune Pro drop away rest that they've got now. This is something new that I've started using on that indoor bow and my 3D bow. I'm really enjoying the way this is set up. The drop away for me allows me to get clearance on my vanes without having to worry about the way that I've offset them, or maybe what diameter blade I was running or anything like that. So it's helping me get a little bit better tune on the bow. It's also helping me get a little bit more forgiving arrow flight. So they're grouping better because it's not hitting off the blade. And maybe if I torque the bow a little bit differently, or if the arrow leaves the bow a little differently from shot to shot, it's not kicking and moving off that blade. So this is helping me a lot. That's what I'm going to start doing now with this video series. Set this up with the arrow rest. I'm going to show you third axis and sight setup, sight light setup. I'm using a Zebro sight light now, so that'll be next. That'll be one of the things that I'm using. I'll show you the setup that I'm using with this, some clear fiber, and why I'm using a clear fiber and what I'm doing on size, scope setup, tuning, grouping with the arrows, a little bit of an arrow setup. I'll let you know what I'm doing with it, and how I'm going to be doing all the point weight and setup and everything like that. I'm going to be using Easton Carbon 1s. This is pretty much my go-to for outdoor arrows. Not as expensive, obviously, as the X10, the Pro Tours, but they still group really well, especially for what I'm looking for. They have really good tolerances, and if you build them right, you can get them to really, really fly well. Appreciate everybody watching this video, and for tuning back into the Tuesday tip of the weeks. Share this with your friends. Let everybody know they're back. And if there's anything I can do to answer questions for you, post them in the video below, or send me an email. There's a contact form on my website at rcarchery.com. Make sure there's no A in that. It's just rcarchery.com. Thank you all again. I'll see you soon.